Hi and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It Chapter 2 was released in 2019 and was directed by Andy Muschietti and written by Gary Dauberman. And it stars Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, James McAvoy and Bill Skarsgard. Set 27 years after the Losers Club first defeated Pennywise the Clown, it is back in Derry, and the adult losers have to return to town to battle their old foe once again. I enjoyed the first film. I'd probably put it towards the top of King adaptations, and although it wasn't perfect, the kids all had good performances, and Bill Skarsgard was especially good as Pennywise the Clown. It was also quite creepy and had a few decent scares along the way. I'm very surprised to find out that Chapter 2 is directed by the same person who directed the first film, and is also written by the co-writer of the first film. Chapter 2 feels like a very different film. It's much more showy, there's lots more CGI, it doesn't fit the same tone as the first film. And although the source material in King's novel is definitely weaker in its second half, this film seems to have lost a lot of the good things from the first film. The cast is generally good, the kids are all excellent again, with a few of them even surpassing their adult versions. There's less focus on the children, and their story is a little bit filler this time, but the cast still do very well. Adult versions of the Losers Club are a touch more sketchy. Mike is a very dull character, quite lifelessly played by Isaiah Mustafa. Ben, played by Jay Ryan, is also a little bit bland. And James Ransom takes the likeably neurotic Eddie and turns him into a really annoying arsehole. Thankfully, the ever-reliable Jessica Chastain and James McAvoy are pretty solid. But this is a double bill film. Bill Hader and Bill Skarsgård are both really good. Bill Hader provides the comedy relief, but he hits the tone dead on. He's this cynical, slightly washed-up stand-up comedian who uses comedy quips to get over his fear. And just like in the first film, Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise is definitely the highlight of the film. He's threatening and manic, and I love the way he shows Pennywise restraining his otherworldly viciousness. It feels like the smiles and laughter will turn into a flurry of teeth and claws any second, and of course they do at the right moment. There's also a nice dig at Stephen King himself, who, by the way, has a little cameo. James McAvoy plays a writer, and he's famed for not ending his novels very well, just like Stephen King, and just like It, actually. So what isn't good? As I said before, Mike is a very dull character, and he has to convey some of the most clunky, boring exposition I've seen for a very long time. There's a really silly story about Mike meeting up with some Native Americans who show him how Pennywise was defeated in the past. It's really hokey and just so badly done and written. The biggest flaw of this film for me, though, was totally ignoring the fact that less is more, especially in horror. There's a huge over-reliance on CGI. It's everywhere. There's barely any practical effects. And there is quite a lot of CGI in the first film, but it's a lot more subtle. They knew when to use it and when to hide it. But there's so much in this film and real varying degrees of quality as well. So because of Mike's silly dream story, each character apparently has got to find an artifact from their childhood which they need to destroy to defeat it. So they must all return to a scene from their past to collect something which has caused them fear or trauma. In each of these scenes, which play out in turn, they go to a place, they have a bit of a memory, something creepy happens, and then BAM! It's there. Teeth and eyes, CGI everywhere. And each of the Losers Club has one of these scenes, one after the other. They're all pretty much the same. They go to a place, have a bit of a memory, something creepy happens, and then Pennywise is there. It gets predictable and repetitive very quickly, and it's not at all scary. The over-reliance on CGI becomes glaringly obvious in a scene towards the end, a little homage to my favourite horror film of all time, John Carpenter's The Thing, where there's a spider head. And what's amazing is those practical effects from The Thing from 1982 look probably better or at least as good as the CGI in this film. And when Bill Hader's character reacts in the same way as the character from The Thing, you've got to be fucking kidding me. I said the exact same thing to the screen. Besides one short scene under some seating at a sports event, this film it just isn't scary at all. There's no scenes of tension. I was never sweaty palmed. The ending, just like in the book and in the 80s TV adaptation, is really drawn out and very flimsy. It is true, sometimes King doesn't know how to end his stories. Overall, It Chapter 2 is a slickly produced film with a couple of star turns from Bills, Hader and Skarsgård. But it's extremely weak plot, some weak characters, and its over-reliance on scare deadening CGI make this a disappointing follow-up to the first film, which I'd rate an 8 out of 10. My score for It Chapter 2 is 5 out of 10. I have a couple of daddy-daughter reviews on the backlog of Denis Villeneuve's Arrival and a visit to the cinema to watch an 80s classic, The Karate Kid. Next up from me will be a review of Shia LaBeouf's The Peanut Butter Falcon. Thanks for watching.